Most NFL teams don't have LSU's Will Campbell as their top offensive line prospect. Here's who it actually is.
Yeah, I talked to several teams, and there is a little bit of a caveat here. This was before the testing began, but there were several teams around the NFL that I've been told Tyler Booker from Alabama is the top overall offensive lineman on the board. Now, those conversations are super fascinating, Joe, because typically tackles rise, guards fall a little bit, but I just thought it was super interesting to know that teams around the league, even though people are still starting to get super cold on Tyler Booker because he's not a tremendous athlete from a testing perspective, he is still a guy that the NFL really likes. But can I say this? Can I say this? If you watched Tyler Booker on film and expected him to be this elite athlete, a guy that was going to test out of the gym, that was a false conversation in your head. Like, he was never going to be that guy. You're drafting Tyler Booker for the tenacity, for the physicality, for the power, for those types of things. So will he be the first offensive lineman off the board? That's a question, but it does sound like there are several teams around the league, a decent amount, I would say at this point, that have Tyler Booker from Alabama as their top-graded overall offensive lineman in the 2025 class.
Yeah, Will Campbell tested a lot better than I was anticipating. I still have flexibility question marks. It doesn't mean for me that it's going to hurt his impact in the NFL. It's why I believe he's a guard. Kelvin Banks, we knew was going to be a pretty good athlete and that he was going to move pretty well, and his testing numbers overall were pretty strong. He had some of the best jumps out of any of the offensive linemen. But Tyler Booker, despite the testing, like I'm not worried about it. The thing with the offensive lineman is, yes, it helps us to have the context of like, oh, this guy can generate force really quickly with his lower body when he jumps, or this guy can run in a straight line with like Armand Membao, who we knew was going to be a fluid mover in space. Same thing for Jared Wilson, who had the fastest 40 time of any of the linemen, the center from Georgia. But Tyler Booker, if you watched him during the damn drills, you saw what Tyler Booker was, which is having really the best base and the best feet out of any of the linemen. I don't care what anybody says. He is the best anchor. He's got the best leg drive in the run game. It does not shock me that NFL teams are believing that. And I don't think any are going to be pushed off of this fact that he didn't test super explosively. Guards do not need to be. It's one of those positions where guards do not need to be in that upper rare elite category for testing. They pointed out and they compared him on the broadcast to Quentin Nelson. And Quentin Nelson is a great jumper and he generates a lot of force, but he didn't run a 40. So like we probably would have tested in a similar range as Booker.
Yeah. Well, and what makes Tyler Booker so impressive is we talked about the physicality, we talked about the tenacity. Joe, when he was being interviewed, I mean, over a few months, like I'm not even talking about just his combine availability, he says stuff like, I want to take the soul from people, right? Like I want to make them physically depressed. Like I love that in an offensive lineman. So you are not drafting Tyler Booker to be a guy that you're going to run like a bunch of screens and be able to get him out on the perimeter as a blocker. Like that's just not his game overall. You're asking him to dominate dudes in a phone booth, to be able to be a mover at the point of attack, inside zone, and that type of thing, working up to the second level. And he can do that stuff really well. So in this class that I think there's a lot of uncertainty, there is a very high floor player in Tyler Booker. If he ends up being worse than a solid to good NFL offensive lineman, I'll be very surprised. But I do think he has a lot of upside in the right system and in the right scheme. And he's showcased himself from an interview perspective, from an availability perspective, and from a physicality perspective, that there's a whole lot to like in Tyler Booker, even if he's not going to run a fast 40-yard dash.
Folks, let us know in the comments, who's your favorite offensive lineman in the 2025 NFL Draft? Hit the like button and subscribe, and we will talk to you later.